If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
All right, before we bring back our studio audience, think of what he said. I take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. Well, let's listen to President Obama when he talks about fair share, income, inequality he often mentions. Listen to this.
If everybody is getting a fair shot, everybody has a chance to do better. We can build an economy that gives everybody a fair shot.
When we talk about everybody paying their fair share, Americans who can afford it should pay their fair share.
Fair play and shared responsibility. I think that's a fair approach. Americans who can't afford it should pay their fair share.
Fair play and shared responsibility, that's what we're about.
Buffett rule is something that will get us moving in the right direction towards fairness. And so it's time for Congress to stand up for the middle class and make our tax system fairer.
We've got to make sure that we've got a tax system that reflects everybody doing their fair share.
Or are we better off when everybody gets a fair shot?
Never remember what Joe Biden said about women. They're stuck in dead-end jobs. Well, who's going to pay for their health insurance? Well, that would be you. Remember this comment.
This is about freedom. How many of you are single women with children in a dead-end job? You're there because of your health insurance. You would rather have the opportunity to spend the next couple years with your child till they get, if that was your choice, till they get into primary school. You're now trapped in that job because if you leave, you lose your health insurance. Now, you'll be able to make an independent choice.
All right, take from those who have and give to those who want it until we take away the incentive of the ambitious. Oh, that's sort of like New York after you pay federal, state, local, sales, property, and every other tax. 3 cents of every dollar goes to the government, Judith. Sounds like Paul Harvey is Nostradamus. Forget about being the great radio icon.
I think what we've...
Hannity, all right, throughout the hour, we have been proving how relevant Paul Harvey's warning to America is today and how something needs to be done to change course here in this country. And one of the great last chances to right the ship could be the Tea Party movement. And our good friend, Deneen Borelli, attended the Freedom Works Free Pack Tea Party event this past weekend in Louisville, Kentucky, and spoke to activists about their concerns. There she is. Take a look.
What brings you here today at Free Pack?
Well, I'm here to listen and learn. I think this country is in a huge mess, and I'm just looking for solutions and some answers.
It's always a positive experience when we're talking to America about the blessings of liberty. However, you and I know that we run into obstacles, particularly among our own, when we talk about conservatism and, of course, the tenets of fiscal conservatism.
Not surprisingly, I am the only conservative in my family, so I've had to defend conservative principles and tell them what it's done in my life and attempt to show people how other principles are not helping them.
Pastor, it's interesting. By the way, great piece. Thank you, Deneen. Really appreciate it. You know what's interesting? Every word that I was listening to of the people that Deneen was interviewing there, those are all the words that would have triggered an IRS investigation with Lois Lerner. Those were the key words.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I know about the IRS investigation, believe me. Running for office against a very powerful Democrat in New York, you open yourself up.
Who are you running against?
Charles Rangel.
Ah, if only you won.
Yes, yes.
So you've been through it. Noel, you look at all that's happening. Is the Tea Party the answer? Because I actually think conservative principles are the answer. And to me, it's simple. Lower taxes, greater freedom, tap our country's energy resources, stop spending more than you take in. I don't think
and also, one of the things is overlooked is the national debt. I mean, the more that thing grows, the weaker we are. And I think that what we're battling, and going back to Paul Harvey for this panel, I think that we are up against liberalism. And liberalism is basically a religion to its own. I think that it's a culture and it's a way of life. And I think that it's, you know, that's why we're so divided, because basically it's conservatism and it's Christianity versus liberalism.
Joe?
Well, I think it's funny.
You're a liberal. All right, go ahead.
For just a second here. Think about what the president was saying in the last segment. He was talking about fairness. I believe in fairness too, equality of opportunity. The reason that Americans the reason, of course, we have income inequality problems, but the problem is, how do we solve that? How do we approach that?
How about free market? How about freedom and opportunity? How about capitalism?
Do we solve it with free market solutions that attack those problems by leveling the playing field, or we just try to skew it more and more, have government come in and try to offset the different problems that exist within our marketplace today? We have a skewed marketplace due to both Republican and Democratic policies, not just one party, and that's why there's so much distrust that we see in all these institutions.
So I think that's a very valid point. I mean, the income inequality is something that we have to face, and it would be great, and we could talk about equality if we all started on equal playing fields. But we all know that's not the case.
So what do you want to do? You want the government to level the field, so to speak?
Sometimes the government has to come in and say, you're being unequal. Look at segregation. We ignored this in the first segment, but segregation is an area where the government had to come in and say, no, you can't do that anymore.
You want the government to literally try and make it equal.
The government sets floors.
Democracy is our political system,
to
not
each American based on their need. From every American based on their ability. Is that your philosophy?
Sure. You can keep them. You can
sure. Karl Marx that was his philosophy.
You can keep a floor in and a safety net. That's what Social Security is there for.
To each according to their need.
Medicare is there for. It's to make sure people can retire in dignity.
You are already on an exceptional playing field by being born in this great country. You have an opportunity to move out of any.
Todd Starnes.
Help other people. And we're not talking about the Christian nation that doesn't want to protect seniors and the poor and doesn't want to reach out or help uplift people.
What are you talking? Okay, hold on a second. Look,
we have $7 trillion in debt and 17 trillion in debt and 90 trillion in unfunded liabilities.
This administration
is it immoral to rob our kids? Is it immoral to rob future generations?
Look at the numbers. No, it's
Todd.
Sean, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. So if you take the Creator out of it, which is what the liberals have been trying to do, and they've been so far pretty successful, who do you put in there? If you take out the Creator, do you put in? Let's put in Karl Marx. How did that work out?
Apparently that works for him.
How did that work out? Where do you look? Back in the last election. You had, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, in that arena when the Democrats tried to kick God out of the party, and then they booed God. Why do you think they booed God? Because there's only the Democrats booed God.
I was there.
Why do you think? Well, you should have been listening. My question is, why did they boo God? It's because they only have room for one deity in the Democratic Party, and the Almighty's not it.
Kirsten.
That's the biggest bunch of nonsense I've ever heard, first of all. Second of all, let's go back in history.
Look at me, look at
Let's
Todd.
go back in history and look at the facts of this wonderful time that you're hearkening back to when Christians ran everything, when we had segregation, when Jews were openly discriminated against, where women were openly discriminated against. This is a fantasy world that never existed. It doesn't mean that we don't have problems in this country, but to pretend that somehow when God was in the public schools, everything was going so perfectly.
Wait,
hold on. This was one of the greatest evils in the country, in the history of the country. Segregation happened while God was in the schools.
But wait a minute.
So do not compare that to Miley Cyrus. You know,
I don't know where you're going.
Like, the point is like the things that people are saying somehow that liberalism and being anti-God and taking God out of the schools.
The point is that in this country, Christians are being told to shut up. Christians are being told to shut up. They're being told your views don't count anymore. It doesn't matter. Shut up, be quiet, pay your taxes.
Sean, there are Democrats.
All right, one at a time, guys.
Sean, there are Democrats who believe in God, who know that what Kirsten is saying is true, and with all due respect, Todd, I'm a Democrat. I was in the White House. I push for prayer. I believe in God, and I believe we're all Americans, and we're not to be divided. We're to solve problems constructively. I can disagree with you with me, Sean, and we can part friends and allies, not be bitter. It's not liberals against conservatives. We're all Americans.
Hang on. Let me just bolster Todd's point in this way. In the 40s and 50s, what were the problems in our school? By the way, before the Civil Rights, hang on, before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, Republicans, Lyndon Johnson needed because Al Gore's father wasn't available. He was on the wrong side of history.
Conservatives were on the wrong side of history.
I'm agreeing with all those sins, and there's no excuses for it, period, end of sentence. But with all that said, the problems weren't morally as severe for all of America.
What are you talking about? It was segregation.
I'm saying segregation was evil, but I'm saying you're missing my point. I'm saying segregation was evil.
I will just note that none of the liberals here have spoken about conservatives the way the conservatives have routinely spoken about liberals on this panel.
Have you listened to Obama?
No, I'm not. You've picked out the worst of the worst, but I don't think these are the worst of the worst. And yet they're sitting there and talking about liberals as if liberals are causing every problem in the world. You know, and trying to
we move forward when people stop believing that they, as a group or a religion or a class or a race, have a monopoly on virtue and wisdom.
Absolutely
we move
right.
forward when we listen to one another as we do here and discuss. And that's what Americans
want.
We
haven't thrown one chair. I mean, this is really, this is not. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. And coming up.